Where legends breathe again. Eldmyth. Forged from clay and brought to life by ancient magic, the golem stands as a guardian of secrets, a protector of the helpless, and a legend that has survived centuries. But what makes this legendary creature so enduring in myth and folklore? Let us begin in the silence between heartbeats, in the deep places of the world where stone remembers the weight of ages. Here, in the shadows of forgotten mountains and within the cool, silent clay of riverbeds untouched by sun, a presence stirs. It is not born but made. It does not breathe, yet it moves. This is the golem, a creature of earth and intent, of mud and miracle, of profound, unsettling silence. Its story is not written in stars, but pressed into the very ground we walk upon, a narrative sculpted from dust and desperation. Across centuries and continents, from the cramped alleyways of old Prague to the windswept highlands of ancient folklore, the legend persists. A being shaped by human hands, animated by sacred words, and burdened with a purpose as heavy as its own earthen form. It is a protector that becomes a prisoner, a servant that dreams of stillness, a giant of clay that walks the fine, crumbling line between salvation and ruin. To speak of the golem is to speak of a mirror held up to humankind itself, our longing for power, our fear of chaos, our profound loneliness, and the terrifying responsibility of creation. Listen now as we trace its footsteps, soundless, deep impressions in the soft earth, and unravel the mystery of the silent giant. The golem's roots sink deep into the rich, dark soil of Judaic mysticism, specifically the lore of the Kabbalah. The concept emerges from the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation, which contemplates the divine power to shape reality through the combination of letters and numbers, the very building blocks of existence. This was not mere metaphor, it was a potential technology of the spirit. If God breathed life into Adam, the first man from the dust of the earth, could a man, sufficiently holy and learned, emulate that act on a lesser scale? The answer, whispered through yeshivas and coded in mystical texts, was a trembling yes. But this was no act of whimsy. The golem was a creature of profound solemnity, created not for glory but for dire need. Its most famous incarnation is inextricably linked to the figure of Rabbi Judah Loew ben Bezalel of 16th century Prague. In a city simmering with tension, where blood libels threatened the Jewish community with violent pogroms, the rabbi, a scholar of both Talmud and hidden wisdom, sought a defender. He did not look to armies or kings, but to the riverbank. There, with his son-in-law and his pupil, he sculpted a colossal figure from the clay of the vault of a river. The ritual of creation was a sacred inversion of divine work. Under the cover of night, by the river's murmuring flow, the three men chanted specific permutations of God's secret names. They circled the lifeless clay form, imbuing it with the elemental forces of fire, water, air, and earth. Finally, Rabbi Loew placed a shem, a parchment inscribed with one of the names of God, into the creature's mouth, or sometimes upon its forehead, etching the Hebrew word emet, meaning truth. And then the miracle or the burden began. The earth trembled, the mud cracked and dried, and the golem opened its eyes. They were not eyes of understanding or soul, but of dull, obedient awareness like stones given sight. It rose, a giant of river clay, towering over its creators, smelling of damp earth and minerals. It followed simple commands understood through the parchment in its mouth. By day, it was a silent, hulking servant in the rabbi's household, chopping wood, drawing water. But by night it became a watchman, patrolling the narrow, shadowed lanes of the Jewish quarter, its heavy footfalls a warning to any who plotted violence. The very sight of it, this unstoppable, wordless colossus, quelled the mobs before they could form. Yet from its first shambling step, the golem carried a fundamental paradox. It was a testament to human wisdom and piety, yet its existence skirted blasphemy. It was a protector, yet its presence was inherently terrifying. It had the power of movement and strength, but no neshama, no divine spark of soul, no capacity for speech, thought, or moral choice. This absence defined its being. It was a tool, pure and simple, but a tool of immense, unpredictable weight. Folk tales describe its boundless, mindless strength. Asked to fill the water barrels, it might bring the entire river, flooding the courtyard. Ordered to patrol, it could not discern friend from frightened neighbor, continuing its mechanical rounds unless explicitly halted. There is a profound loneliness in these stories, a pity for the creature itself. It dwelled in the attic of the old new synagogue, growing still as stone when the Shem was removed for the Sabbath, a dormant giant listening to the prayers rising from below, prayers it could never comprehend, for a rest it could never truly know. Its life was a pause between animations, a suspension of purpose. The inevitable tension in any story of a created being is the question of control. The golem, lacking a will of its own, was nonetheless subject to the flaws and forgetfulness of its master. The most common and chilling folktale of its end illustrates this perfectly. One Sabbath eve, Rabbi Lo, immersed in prayer, forgot to remove the life-giving Shem from the golem's mouth before the holy day of rest began. The creature, its command uninterrupted, continued its work. But without the nuanced guidance of its master, its actions became chaotic, then destructive. It began to break what it was meant to protect, smashing carts, tearing down walls, its programming reduced to a mindless, unstoppable loop of activity. The rabbi, alerted by the panicked cries from the streets, rushed from the synagogue. He confronted his creation in the now deserted square. The golem, a tower of mud and motion, loomed over him, its eyes blank pits. With the authority of the one who formed it, Rabbi Lo recited the sacred formulas in reverse. He reached up and scraped the first letter, the aleph, from the word emet on its forehead. The word remaining was met, death. Immediately the animation fled. The golem froze, then crumbled, collapsing into a lifeless heap of clay and dust, there in the public square as the Sabbath stars shone down. But the myth of the golem is not confined to one time or one people. It is an archetype that erupts from the collective unconscious wherever humans feel both powerless and creative. In the folklore of many cultures, we find echoes of the earth-given life. In Nordic tales, there are the mold-born, beings shaped from turf and moss by lonely giants. Slavic legends speak of household spirits molded from clay and sticks by peasants, given a single, simple task. The golem represents humanity's ancient dream of overcoming limitation through craftsmanship and will, the potter giving form to the void, the smith forging a metal guardian, the programmer writing code for a digital entity. It is Prometheus, stealing fire, and Daedalus, crafting wings. It is the ultimate expression of the maker's urge, coupled with the creator's dread. What happens when the thing we make is too powerful? What happens when it outlives its purpose? What moral responsibility do we bear for the consciousness, however dim, that we spark into existence? The golem, in its silent, heavy way, asks all these questions. Let us delve deeper into the nature of the golem's existence. Its body, though humanoid, was never human. It was a map of its making, the grit of the riverbank, pebbles for teeth, strands of hemp for hair, the cool, smooth touch of water-polished clay. It moved with a deliberate, ponderous grace, each step a small earthquake, each turn of its head accompanied by the sound of grinding sediment. It did not eat, but it could be said to weather. Rain would soften its surface, sun would bake it hard. It left traces of itself everywhere, crumbly footprints, a fine dust in the air, the scent of ozone and loam. Its strength was the patient, immovable strength of geology, the force that pushes up mountains and grinds continents to silt. To fight a golem was to fight a landslide. Swords would chip against its limbs, arrows would stick uselessly in its thick hide. It felt no pain, no fear, no fatigue. Its only vulnerability was the ritual of its making, the sacred syntax that bound it. This made it not just a physical entity, but a linguistic one, a being made of word, and therefore susceptible to a change in the word. Beyond the well-known Prague narrative, regional variations of the golem myth offer fascinating shades of meaning. In some Polish tales, a golem is created not to defend a community, but to perform a single, Herculean task for an individual, perhaps to build a fortress wall in one night or to clear an entire forest of stones. Once its work is done, the creator, often a lesser mystic than Rabbi Lo, finds he cannot fully deanimate the creature. He manages only to put it into a deep sleep, hiding it in a remote cave or sealing it within the very walls it built. These stories end with a lingering threat. The golem slumbers, but it could awaken again if disturbed. This transforms the creature from a tool into a buried secret, a geological hazard of someone else's making. In other traditions, the golem is not shaped by learned rabbis but emerges spontaneously from the unchecked emotions of a community, a manifestation of collective fear or anger given earthen form. These golems are wilder, more erratic, and dissipate only when the communal fever breaks. They are, in essence, monsters of social contagion made real. The relationship between the golem and its creator is the dark heart of the myth. It is not a relationship of father and son, nor master and pet. It is one of programmer and program, sculptor and statue. The creator's control is absolute, yet perpetually precarious. He must hold the precise sequence of holy letters in his mind, the sacred geometry of its animation. A single mispronunciation, a moment of doubt, could cause the creature to malfunction or turn. The weight of this responsibility is a constant strain. Folk stories often depict the golem's maker aging rapidly under the burden, his eyes forever shadowed by what he has unleashed. He lives with the constant, low hum of anxiety, the knowledge that he has introduced a permanent volatile force into the world. The golem, for its part, exists in a state of pure, pathetic dependence. It watches its master with those stone eyes, awaiting instruction. Some tales even suggest a dim, yearning mimicry. The golem might stand outside the family's door during a wedding, or tilt its head at the sound of children laughing, a silent monument to everything it can never have or be. The symbolism of the golem has proven endlessly fertile, evolving far beyond its origins. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, as the Industrial Revolution birthed new kinds of automata and machines, the golem became a symbol of technology itself, a powerful servant that could become a runaway destroyer. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein monster, though born of science, is a direct literary descendant, a constructed being who turns on its creator, demanding a soul. With the horrors of the world wars and the rise of mechanized armies, the golem transformed again into a metaphor for mindless obedience, for the soldier or citizen turned into an unthinking instrument of destruction by ideological incantations. In our digital age, the golem finds new life in discussions of artificial intelligence. We animate code with our commands. We embed our own biases and purposes into algorithms that then operate on a scale and with a logic we can struggle to control. The modern golem is the autonomous drone, the social media algorithm that radicalizes, the AI that performs its task perfectly but without context or conscience. The ancient question echoes in server farms: who will remove the aleph if our creation runs amok? The golem also serves as a profound metaphor for the creative process, especially for the artist or writer. The initial idea is raw, formless clay. The creator, through skill, knowledge, and a kind of ritualistic focus, the daily practice, the immersion in craft, animates it. The work takes on a life of its own, often surprising its maker, sometimes becoming unwieldy, demanding its own path. The creator can feel both powerful and controlled by their creation. And when the work is finished, published, sent into the world, it is like deanimating the golem. It leaves the creator's control, subject to interpretation and misuse. It becomes a separate entity, carrying a piece of its maker's soul, the Shem, yet ultimately independent. This metaphorical layer adds a deeply personal, almost intimate dimension to the myth. Every person who has ever struggled to give form to a thought, to build something from nothing, has, in a small way, played the role of the Maharal of Prague, trembling at the potential of what they have brought forth. Modern fantasy literature, film, and games have eagerly adopted and adapted the golem. It appears as a loyal guardian in dungeon adventures, a mindless siege engine in epic battles, a tragic figure seeking a soul in animated films. Each iteration explores a different facet: its strength, its obedience, its pathos. Often, these modern versions grant the golem a spark of something approaching consciousness, a childlike curiosity, a desire for friendship, a protective loyalty that transcends its programming. This reflects a contemporary longing to bridge the gap between creator and created, to imagine a relationship that isn't purely tragic. We see golems made of iron, stone, crystal, even garbage, each material commenting on its nature. A stone golem is ancient and patient. An iron golem is unyielding. A garbage golem is a poignant critique of consumption. These stories continue the myth's evolution, proving its core template, earth, word, life, consequence, is eternally resonant. Yet for all it spread into popular culture, the original silent golem of Jewish legend retains a unique, haunting power. It is a being of the Olam Hasiya, the world of action, the lowest and most material of the Kabbalistic realms. It has no place in the higher worlds of spirit. It is pure doing without being. This is its tragedy and its warning. The myth cautions against the hubris of creation without compassion, of power without wisdom, of action without reflection. Rabbi Lowe's story is ultimately one of successful responsibility. He created out of need, not pride. And when the time came, he had the courage and the knowledge to unmake his creation. The golem's clay was returned to the attic, or to the river, its substance recycled into the earth. But legends say the clay figure or the instructions to make it were hidden away in the genizah of the synagogue, stored with other sacred texts that contain the powerful name of God. The potential remains. The knowledge sleeps. So where does the golem dwell today? Not merely in books or screens. It dwells in the anxiety of our technological age. It dwells in the artist's fear of the blank page and the finished work. It dwells in the political nightmare of masses mobilized by simplistic, powerful incantations. It dwells in the environmental reality of a planet shaped and exploited by human hands, now reacting with unpredictable golem-like force, storms, fires, shifts in the very earth. We have, in a sense, made a golem of our world. We animated systems of industry and ideology with our modern Shem of profit and progress, and now we watch with growing dread as it moves with a mindless momentum of its own. The myth asks us, do we remember the sacred formulas? Do we have the wisdom to change the word? Can we, like the wise rabbi, step forward and alter the fundamental command before it is too late? In the final reckoning, the golem is more than a monster or a guardian. It is a story we tell ourselves about the nature of making and the price of power. It is a creature of profound silence, and in that silence, we hear our own echoes. We hear our desire for safety, which leads us to build walls that become prisons. We hear our ambition, which drives us to shape tools that may become our masters. We hear our loneliness, which makes us wish for companions we can entirely control, and the inevitable sorrow when we realize control is the opposite of companionship. The golem walks because we willed it to walk. It falls because we forgot the sacred pause, the Sabbath of the soul. Its body is clay, but its meaning is human, all too human. So the next time you stand by a riverbank and feel the cool, malleable mud between your fingers, or when you write a line of code that sets a process in motion, or when you speak a word that cannot be unsaid, remember the silent giant. Remember the weight of the word. Remember the dust from which we came, and to which we and all our creations will one day return. And in that remembering, perhaps, find a measure of wisdom for the animations we perform every day. The story is told. The clay is still, but the potential is eternal. Another legend fades, but the next awaits. Like this video, subscribe and continue the journey through myths.